So I'm thinking about getting some catch cans. Nah, man, you don't need catch cans. And why not? Because you're NA, bro. Okay, don't you have catch cans? Sure do. And you need them because twin turbos, bro. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more, please? Yeah, of course. I mean, twin turbos. Twin turbos. The whistle and the fast, a lot faster, blow off valve, boost, man. It's the boost. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, of course, man. No problem. No problem. You don't need catch cans. Don't waste your money on catch cans. You might want to just part it out. Well, okay. All right. I guess I'm gonna just part it out or trade it in for a 3.0 T, I guess. Thanks. Yeah, of course. No problem at all. Just trying to share the knowledge, Sharing the knowledge, no problem. What's going on, guys? Hopefully that little parody didn't offend any of you VR30 guys. Just know I love you all. Love all the 3.0 T guys. We're all in this together. We're all a bunch of Infinity owners, right? It may or may not have just been a slight exaggeration of a typical conversation that you might hear on the Facebook groups or in the forums, but nonetheless, we're moving on. I want to talk a little bit about catch cans today, and you know what? If you have a VQ37 naturally aspirated car, you can actually benefit from a set of catch cans, and we'll talk about that right now. So what are catch cans? What do they do? What's their purpose? How can they benefit us with a naturally aspirated engine? Boost in Motion, my buddy, did a pretty good summary of what catch cans are not too long ago, so go check out his video. I'll put a link in the description below if I can remember. But I want to tailor this conversation more to the naturally aspirated platform, us VQ37 guys, because there's a lot of misconceptions and a lot of misinformation about what catch cans do and how they can or cannot benefit us with the naturally aspirated cars. All right, well, let's try to keep this as simple as possible. I'm not going to say all vehicles, but basically all vehicles experience some type of blow-by. Race cars and high-performance cars in particular experience blow-by. Now, what is blow-by? Blow-by is when the air, fuel, moisture, everything that's in the combustion chamber due to compression slips past the rings into the crankcase. This is a really good illustration. As the piston moves up and down inside the cylinder, that unburnt fuel, those gases, and that moisture can slip past the piston rings, even more so in high compression, high revving vehicles. And believe it or not, the VQ37 is actually a pretty high compression, high revving vehicle. I mean, we know that the red line on these vehicles is about 7,500 RPM. After a tune, it can be pushed up to 76, 7,800 RPM I've seen. That's basically the reason why these cars, the VQ37s, actually benefit from being tuned on E85. Whereas other naturally aspirated cars, you wouldn't necessarily see that type of benefit. But that high compression engine actually benefits from the cool burning E85. That's a totally different conversation. So where are we going with all this? Let's take a look at the engine and talk about it. So when that blow-by moves past the piston rings, where does it go? Well, it gets pushed up into the crankcase. That, of course, is essentially what is inside of your valve cover. Now, I'm not going to say every vehicle, but I would say a vast majority of modern day vehicles have a PCV system installed or in line. PCV, of course, stands for positive crankcase ventilation. Now, there is some debate as far as how important positive crankcase ventilation actually is. My take on the whole thing is that the engineers of the vehicles designed it the way it is for a reason, and therefore we should try to maintain that. So just real quickly, what is positive crankcase ventilation? Whether you believe the car actually benefits or needs it or it's required or not, positive crankcase ventilation is this. So if you could get down in there, there is a PCV valve on, in this case, on both valve covers. So the valve is down here. It's connected to your intake tube via a small vacuum hose. So when you accelerate, once the vacuum level reaches a certain point, that valve begins to open up and it vents all of that blow-by, which is obviously accompanied by oil mist and everything else that's happening inside your valve cover, and it sucks it up into the intake, and the idea is that it will recirculate it through the engine. Now, it's probably not too big of a problem in most cases, at least in a daily driver situation, which is up for debate as well, but Essentially what happens is the more blow-by you get, as it works its way up into the throttle bodies, it can gum things up, causing issues on its own, but as it works its way into the engine, it can cause buildup on your valves, and that's just going to have a major impact over time on the performance of your vehicle, at least its optimal performance, which is no good when you're trying to build a performance car. And because these VQ37 engines are actually pretty high revving, high compression engines, they experience more blow-by than your typical naturally aspirated car, which is why I would argue we can certainly benefit from a set of catch cans. Especially if you're like me, out there driving spiritedly, or you go to the mountains every couple of weekends, or you plan on autocrossing, or you're spending some time at the drag strip. You're going to be revving this car up to red line on a regular basis, and that's going to be causing a lot of that oil mist and particulates and nonsense working its way up into your intake tubes and into your throttle body. So we got to deal with it somehow. And the purpose of the catch can is to catch that mist and that garbage in a catch can, and have it drop down in there, but still allow you to maintain that positive crankcase ventilation. So how they would work in this setup is, instead of having this vacuum hose go directly into your intake tube, it would be directed to a catch can, and then a hose would come from the catch can and go back to the intake tube, which would allow you to maintain that positive crankcase ventilation, but it would catch that oil mist and those particulates down in the catch can and prevent it from being pushed back into the engine. Now the challenge on this car is finding a spot for these catch cans, which I think we can do. I'm working on getting a set right now, but looking for a place that we could potentially mount them. May have to do some custom brackets and whatnot, but that's another video in and of itself. Now I've seen some kits out there for the G37 in particular, which of course would probably work on this car, and I've seen some guys install it as well, that essentially deletes that PCV system. Again, that's helpful in keeping all those particulates out of the throttle bodies and prevents them from going into the engine and messing with the valves and all that stuff, which blow-by does. However, it doesn't allow you to maintain that positive crankcase ventilation, and here's where the argument comes about whether or not PCV, positive crankcase ventilation, is essential for these cars or not. But like I said, the engineers did it for a reason, so we're going to try to maintain it. But some folks, again, would argue that it's not necessary and therefore install these PCV deletes. But I got a problem with those too. So what the PCV delete systems do is they basically mess with the vacuum lines here and here and this one, and then you basically terminate the line with a couple of small filters, and again, it prevents that oil mist from working its way up into the throttle bodies, but the problem is that it's just vented out these filters, these small filters at the end of the line, which can cause some oil seepage and spilling and cause some gunk in here. And some people have said they don't have or don't experience any issues, but I am convinced that if you're revving and racing this car and you have this PCV delete system and you just have these small filters underneath your engine cover, you're going to get some oil eventually that runs all over your engine. I don't want it. I'm sure you don't want that. So like I said, we're going to not go with the PCV delete system, and we're going to explore the world of catch cans. So if I haven't said it already, catch cans can be beneficial for people with naturally aspirated platforms, in particular us VQ37 guys, because they are high compression, they're relatively high revving. A lot of us like to race them and run them hard, so we can certainly benefit from a set of catch cans. We're going to save that for a future video, but hopefully this video was helpful in understanding a bit about what catch cans do, how they work, how we can benefit from them, and all that nonsense. If you have any other questions, leave them in the comment section below. I will certainly get to them. And again, go check out Boost Emotion's video. I'll put a link in the description below. He does a good job at explaining them as well. And obviously the VR30 guys have a different situation, so I would direct those questions to that guy. And also check out Enthusiast POV as well. I think he has recently done some catch can related content as well. So thank you guys very, very much for your support, your continued support and engagement on the channel. I appreciate it very, very much. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. stay tuned for some good stuff coming up this winter. Thanks again. See you in the next one.